Welcome to the Vertical Leadership Podcast, episode 4. And the title of today's teaching is, How Did You Get There? Think about it. How did you get to where you are today? How did I get to where I am today? And it's all about these 3 key words that truly determine how we get to where we are and how we eventually get to where we want to be. And the 3 words are observations, opinions, opportunities. I hope you get a lot out of this teaching. Welcome to the Vertical Leadership Podcast, episode 4. I'm so excited to get into this teaching today. The title of today's teaching is, How Did You Get There? Wherever you are, how did you get there? That's the big question I want us all to consider and ask ourselves today is, how did any of us get where we are right now? How did you get there where you are right now in your business, in your ministry, in your community? Whether we're talking church, like some of us who work in church, I'm a pastor, or we're talking business in the corporate sense, it's the same question. How did any of us get where we currently are? How do some people get promoted and some don't? How do some people get a raise and others don't? How is it that you graduated with the same people and you went on and they never went on? Or maybe vice versa. They went on and you never progressed. And so we're talking today about leadership and building healthy teams. That's the purpose of this podcast, to really help us as leaders. So whether we're talking ministry, church, whether we're talking business, corporate world, we are all part of a team. And even as a leader, especially if you're the lead leader or a leader of a team, of a ministry, of a department, even as a leader, while I'm building up a team, I'm also part of somebody else's team. So if we want a healthy team, we have to be healthy ourselves. And when you're leading, you have to really consider, how do I lead a healthy team? How do I do things the way that I want it to get done? Why is it that when I have 7, 8, or 9 people in front of me, I always tend to favor 1 or 2 of them? Why do some stand out and others don't? Why do people get to where they are? Why don't people get to the place where they want to be or where they expect to be? How did you get to where you are today? Well, I learned this lesson from Dr. Sam Chand a while back, and it's a must share. I've been so blessed by Sam Chand and his leadership teachings, and so I want to share this with you today, and I hope it can give you some insight, not only into the team that you're leading, but also into your leadership, because you're also part of a team. So here's the reality. We all got to where we are because of 3 things, okay? And if you're taking notes or if you're with your team right now, I really want you to take advantage, take some notes. We all got to where we are because of 3 things, and here they are, 3 O's: observations, opinions, opportunities. I'll say it again: observations, opinions, and opportunities. Each one of us are here because of these 3 things. Somebody observed you at some point. And after those observations, they formed an opinion about you. And based on those opinions, they gave you an opportunity. You might be on a ministry team at church. You might be on a staff team at your company. You might be leading a group of people in your community. Think about it for a moment. In life, somebody is watching you all the time. We have this idea that cameras are seeing us all the time. Well, the reality is that there are eyes that are always watching you, that are always watching me. Every one of us are here where we are because somebody made an observation about you, somebody formed an opinion about you, and somebody gave you an opportunity. This is my case. I am now the lead pastor of Vertical Church. I wasn't always the lead pastor of Vertical Church. At some point, some people, including my father, who was the founder of our church over 25 years ago, and the leaders saw some things in me. They observed some things, they formed some opinions, and some opportunities were given as my life developed. So we are in our current opportunity, but it started as observations. And we really have to get this, okay? We really have to get this. Here it is one more time. Observations, opinions, opportunities. This is the trajectory of all of your life, how it has come and where it is going. It is the essence, not only of where you are going, but where you're going to take others as you build the team that you are leading. And so the challenge is that this all kind of happens quickly, especially observations. It's like a reflex. It happens without any thought. It happens every time we go to a department store or to a grocery store, and there's different aisles to go pay when you've got all your groceries in your cart. When you get to the checkout point, there's usually about 7, 8, 9, 10 lines, and you have to make some observations. You see that one line is really long. You form an opinion, that one's too long, and so you give another aisle the opportunity. Or you see another aisle that's full of people that are very talkative with the clerk. You say, no, I've made my observations. This one has too many people. This line has some talkative people. Oh, look, this one has a shorter line and everybody's kind of quiet and go through. You're going to give that aisle an opportunity. You make observations, you form your opinion, and you give it an opportunity. Same thing when you walk into a church. Maybe somebody walks into a church for the first time. They don't know anybody. And when they walk into the auditorium, there's a lot of people everywhere, and they see an aisle, it's full of people. They see another aisle. Some people are kind of quiet. They see another aisle that's got some space. They make observations, they form their opinion, and they say, I'm going to give that aisle a chance. It's got some more space. There's nobody sitting right next to me. We all do this all the time. You form an opinion based on your observations, and you give opportunity. So let's start talking about each one of these three. Let's start with observations. Okay, so we have to start by learning to be good observers. If everyone is observing you and you're observing everyone, what should we observe? How can we become intentional observers? And especially as you're building a team, as a leader, and you're helping it to grow, the first thing you want to observe about a person, I'm going to give you a few things here, is attitude. You want to observe their attitude. You will meet a person's attitude 20 feet before you meet them. 20 feet before you meet them, you'll meet their attitude, even on the phone, on a phone call. And so as you're watching this podcast or you're listening to this teaching, we're not blind, we're not deaf, we're always observing people, and people are always observing you. And based on their observations, they are forming opinions all the time. So your attitude matters because your attitude is easily observable. And the reality is, and this is true anywhere, listen, bad attitudes are like bad breath. Everybody else knows about it except for you. And so it's important to understand my attitude matters. Why? Because people are observing me. Okay, what else do we need to observe when we're building a team and the people that are serving or that are working with us? We need also to observe preparation. This is the thing that we can easily observe when we're considering our teams and our team members. When my team members are given a task or when they come to the meeting, here's the question. Do they come prepared? Do they come ready? Or do they just show up? Do they show up on time? Do they know how the flow goes in our team and in our culture of our organization? Do they understand how our team fits into the greater whole of the company or of the church? Preparation is important. Why? Because people are observing us, and people will observe when you're prepared and when you are unprepared. What's another thing we want to observe on the people in our teams? We want to observe clarity of identity, okay? Clarity of identity. In other words, understanding who we are. Does this person understand who we are? This is who we are. Do they understand how we do things? If this person is new, serving on our team at our church, for example, do they understand where they're standing? Do they understand how we do things? Even if they came from another church, they need to understand this is our church now. You leave that culture behind. This is the culture that we are now embracing because this is where we are. And a lot of times people might come from another company to your company, and they have some ideas or some ways of doing things that are different because our cultures might be different or our values might be different than that other company or that other church. So we need to make sure that people on our team have clarity of identity of who we are. What is your church known for? What is your business known for? Your team needs to know this. So you want to observe attitude. You want to observe preparation. You want to observe clarity of identity. Here's something else you want to observe. You want to observe the issue of problems or solutions. You want to observe people who really bring solutions. I want people on my team who can bring me solutions, okay? And the world is ruled by people who take a problem, identify it, but they don't just identify it, they actually bring solutions. So whenever anybody comes to me with a problem, I have learned now over the years and from the teachings that I've received that the first question that I can ask is, what do you think we should do about it? You've identified a problem. Here's the question. What do you think we should do about it? You've had some time to think about this. You've identified it. What do you think? And here's another thing I'm learning with my staff and my team members is don't just come to me with a problem. Come to me with some solutions. In fact, I like 3 solutions. I don't like it to be either or. I like it to be 3 options that we can have. Based on this problem you identified, what is the solutions? These are good things to observe. Why? Because when you're observing, it makes you form opinions and it leads you to opportunities. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about observation. Let's talk about opinions. So people's opinions can be fickle. They're changing all the time. We might even form our opinion based, obviously, on our observations, and that might change based on new observations that we're seeing. So people form opinions, we form opinions, and we tend to hold on to them. So here's what I have learned throughout my leadership journey thus far, is that when you form an opinion on your team member, about your team member, you have 4 options. You can promote, demote, stagnate, or terminate. When you form an opinion about somebody on your team or on your staff or on your payroll in your company, you can promote, demote, stagnate, or terminate. Because of your opinion of them, obviously you can promote them. So when you promote somebody is when you observe somebody doing a good job, you want to push them up, promote them, give them more responsibilities. Sometimes you may need to demote. You might need to transition someone down because you're observing poor results of what is expected. You may stagnate, which means you leave people right where they are. Maybe if they're not making much of a difference, it's not necessarily great, but it's not hindering. So you might stagnate, keep them in the same place, or you might have to terminate in some cases. Sometimes people get fired from jobs, or people are asked to step down due to observations of not fulfilling the responsibilities, not coming through, or not getting it quite right. Everywhere you go, people are forming opinions. At the airport, you see the people that are working, attending behind the counter, you're forming an opinion about that attendant. When you go to a restaurant and you see the waiter or the waitress, based on how they treat you, what you observe, you're forming an opinion. When you walk into a car dealership, you see the dealer or you see the salesman come up to you, and based on what you observe, you form an opinion. So if you're stuck in life, it may be because of somebody else's opinion. If you're stuck at your job, it may be because of somebody else's opinion. Or once we understand this, it can really, really help us make some moves and adjustments. Also, you may hold the key to someone else's future. And what is it based on? It's based on your observations. And a lot of times we don't learn, nobody teaches us how to observe. And it's also based on the opinions that we form that are based on those observations. That leads us to the third thing. Remember, we're talking about these 3 things: observations, opinions, opportunities. So let's talk about opportunities. When you give somebody an opportunity, usually there's one of 2 responses. It's either, oh yes, or it's, oh no, right? When we give people opportunities. Have you ever put somebody in an opportunity and realized quickly, what was I thinking? Putting this person in this position or giving this person this responsibility. Opportunities in life will vary. Opportunities in ministry, in work or professional areas will vary. Usually it's based on what? Observations made, opinions formed based on those observations, and of course, opportunities that can be presented. When Jesus was building his team, we read in the Bible, he selected his disciples. Were they perfect? Absolutely not. They weren't perfect, but he saw potential in them. And if we get better at observing, we'll get better at giving opportunities. I have to work hard on my observation skills, and I have to work on sometimes slowing down my opinion forming on purpose. Why? So that I can have a better result in the end with everything that we're doing. Now, it's important to understand that we all affect each other, okay? Everywhere you're going to go in life is because somebody observed, somebody formed an opinion, and somebody gave you an opportunity. Even right now, someone else is possibly holding the key to your future because of their observations and opinions. And maybe as a leader in your organization, you're holding somebody else's future simply based on your observations and the opinions you have formed about that person. So here's some good question. What am I observing about others? And even more importantly, what are others observing about me? And that is why, as a leader, the hardest part is that you can never really be turned off. Why? Because people are always watching and observing. And so it is important to look in the mirror and say, what are people observing about me? And it's not just physically, it's in my reactions, my responses, my attitude, my preparation, my clarity of identity in what we're doing. Do I bring solutions to the problems I identify? Why? I'm always under observation. People are always therefore forming opinions about me, and my opportunities for the future are dependent upon those observations and those opinions that will open the door to my opportunities. And so, like I said a little earlier, I am where I am today in life, in my organization, in my church, in ministry. Why? Because throughout my life, people made observations about me, they formed opinions about me, and they opened the door and gave me certain opportunities. Whenever it was, my father, as the lead pastor of our church, he started seeing some things about me. Leaders in school, leaders in college, at work, people started observing some things I was on their radar. I got on their map. I had responsibilities. Initially, my responsibility as a pastor's kid at church was setting up the chairs before everybody got to church. And all I had to do was make sure that whatever I did, it was observed that I was doing it with excellence. I was doing it with a good attitude. I was prepared. And this later elevated me to new opportunities and new positions. You know, the Bible says that we go on from glory to glory. Well, I believe that we go on from observation to observation, from opinion to opinion, and we also go from opportunity to opportunity. Some interesting Bible verses that catch my attention on this topic, and I'll close with this. Colossians 3:23 and 24 says, "Work willingly at whatever you do as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward and that the master you are serving is Christ." Check this out. Jeremiah 32:19, "Great are your purposes and mighty are your deeds. Your eyes are open to the ways of all mankind. You reward each person according to their conduct and as their deeds deserve." Check this one out. Proverbs 14:23. "All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty." And so as I close this teaching today, I want you to remember the main question that we're asking today is, how did you get there? Wherever it is that you are, how did you get there? Really, the main thing that determines where we all get, or where we are right now, is this: observations, opinions, and opportunities. And what will determine where you will get in the future is exactly this: observations, opinions, opportunities. Why? Because someone is always watching you. People are observing you, and those observations will lead them to form opinions. And those opinions will then determine whether you get more opportunities or you don't. And in the same way, we as leaders are observing our people. We're forming opinions about them, and we sometimes have the key to their future and their opportunities. So it's an important question to ask. How did you get there where you are? And here's another question. How are you going to get to where you really want to be? I'm so thankful you've connected for this Vertical Leadership podcast. I hope this helps you. I hope it helps your leaders, your team, the people around you that are trying to build up their leadership. I'm thankful for you, and I pray to God that this would encourage you and help you be a better leader. If you like this Vertical Leadership podcast, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen on Spotify or on iTunes. Remember, every first Monday of the month, we will have a new teaching through this podcast, both in Spanish and in English. See you next time.